Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining our session. My name is Kelly Ellis, and I have the privilege of leading marketing efforts in North America, and most importantly, meeting changemakers like yourselves. Joining me is Christine Palmer. Christine is the VP of Marketing with American Institute. She has both marketing agency and school experience in her 20 plus years in the education sector. She is dedicated to student success and creating an environment of success for marketing and admissions in education. What I love most is that she refuses to accept the status quo and is unafraid to ask the tough questions that yields results. She's a passionate marketer committed to helping people connect with opportunities to enhance their lives. Also joining me, and last but certainly not least, is Shub Mishra. Shub leads our sales efforts and is very familiar with the education industry. He has quite a few friends and fans in the career school administration. A few of you are probably attending. And I just attended an industry event with him and can definitely attest to his fan base. Let's quickly review just a few housekeeping items before we get started. So as to avoid any distractions or background noise, all attendees will be muted. This means, like some of us, you may hear a dog bark, but this means you don't have to police your fur baby or your little ones running around the house if you're working from home. But if you're having any issues with volume, you can try clicking on the setting wheel to either change your audio device or adjust the volume. We certainly are hoping to pique your interest and conjure up some ideas, so there will be time for Q&A at the end of the webinar. Please use the chat function to ask your question. We'll get to as many as we can, but we definitely will follow up after the webinar. So no worries. All right, let's get started. Today, we will discuss the current state of career school admissions, including some common challenges and 4 proven strategies for achieving your enrollment goals. Some interesting stats highlighting the current state of career or trade school admissions and enrollment include, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, many of the fastest growing career fields are skilled trades. Pre-pandemic career and trade schools saw trade schools saw a surge in enrollments from 9.6 million in 2009 to 16 million in 2014. And although enrollments declined during the pandemic, experts are definitely predicting significant growth in the coming years. Another stat that's interesting is, according to the Society for Human Resource Management, 60% of employees believe their career skills will be outdated in 3 to 5 years. So this definitely creates a significant opportunity for new enrollments. And although growth is exciting, we definitely see it on the horizon. It's not without its challenges. And we conducted a survey to understand some of the challenges that you and your peers are experiencing or expecting. And the top 3 responses that we heard were low enrollment numbers, understanding and effectively using new or updated tactics to attract new students, and process efficiency. So with that said, Christine, how have you seen the state of career school admissions change in recent years?
You know, as you've noted, it's a challenging time. I mean, we've seen a pandemic and we've got a government administration that's not necessarily friendly to our sector. What we've experienced is kind of a honing and refining of our admissions team, where they have to be better than ever to be able to connect with our potential students and support them in their life changes when so much else in life is uncertain. I'm biased, thinking that I have the best team in the nation. And, I'm pretty sure that's actually true, but, I'll admit my bias on that account. But they're passionate. Our team is passionate about making sure that people are engaged in changing their life, and they want to help them succeed, and they want to reach for the goal that makes the difference in their life and for their family. The days when you could just sort of get by are behind us. You can't do that anymore. The team has to be 100% committed to student success. And today, every person on the team needs to be as committed and as dedicated as the leadership to helping students not just enroll, but graduate and complete their journey towards a new career.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also gone are the days of being able to count on and forecast enrollment without having the proper technology in place, from engaging prospective students to ensuring those starts, which is critical in the success and the growth. Some experts predict a significant growth in the coming years. However, if you look at the trends in this chart in birth rates, it may be a few challenging years before we see a resurgence in new student enrollments. And as the chart reflects, for many years, we saw the baby boomer height of interest and the huge population who needed the training, and then a dip until the millennials reached the age to attend the trade schools. And then another little dip and looking at the future to go up again with Gen Z, and then yet another drop. Given this data, and Christine, how do you think we should ride out this roller coaster?
One of the things I like about this chart and this data is that it shows that the dips are shallower as we go forward. So into the future, we don't have that same deep valley that we had for the Gen X following the boomer generation. That means that while they are the natural cycles of, a generation that gives birth to the next generation, and then there's that lull in between while they age up, the population of the 18 to 34 typical post-secondary audience is less of a steep decline that makes it so incredibly tough to weather. I think to survive and thrive during the dips, we find that our model of, employer-driven and jobs-driven career training is the best suited to adjust to those trends and adapt as needed. Our schools are able to add programs to, meet market demand, and then phase programs out as that market demand subsides. And that's, literally kind of going where the jobs are for our student training and helping them get the training that they need for those jobs that are in demand in the current moment. That ability to change is one of our strongest assets. And I think it's one of the core reasons that students choose vocational training instead of a traditional university degree. In addition, I think it's important to never get too comfortable. Like you said, I'm not satisfied with the status quo. And I think you have to always be pushing to best, whatever that looks like in a given moment. Students respond to people who are interested in helping them succeed. If you've gotten lazy or complacent and your program or approach doesn't match what is happening today in the marketplace, then they're going to know, and they're going to be less likely to engage with you. One thing I think we learned through the pandemic, when all of us had to pivot quickly to a distance education platform because really there was no other choice. I think, I just applaud all of our teams, especially our education teams, for ensuring that the education quality was maintained. And it showed us in the midst of that really tough and challenging time that we're capable of so much more. And that adaptability and that capacity makes us stronger and better able to pivot as future demands require. So there's been good things to come out of the pandemic for us, I think.
Yeah, I could not agree more. We're certainly getting used to uncertainty, and at the core, we're finding even here of any growth model today is the ability to adjust and pivot while keeping our customers at the center of it all, or like in your community, students. The way we consume and engage with information is continually evolving. And what may have worked 5 years ago to attract new students may not have the same effect today. Christine, how did you adjust your marketing outreach during the pandemic, and how has that changed now that we're through the worst, so to speak?
In the midst of the pandemic, obviously we all were very digital because that's where everybody was living, right? And I kind of liken it to the Google jungle, right? Like you're Tarzan swinging on the vines of their latest update, and every once in a while they throw in an update and you kind of have to climb back up a little bit. It's challenging, that digital environment. And during the pandemic, we had better success reaching people by phone because they were home, they were like confined and available. Now, as we're getting out and about, we're running into some of the challenges that we had pre-pandemic, which are, getting a hold of people at any given time. So we've evolved back into some of the pre-pandemic success points for us, which were getting out into the community, and whether it's offering complimentary chair massages at a local celebratory event or fair, or blood pressure screenings for a health, 5K or something. We've always enjoyed getting our students out into the community, and they love that. They're delighted to show off the new skills that they've gained, and it gives us an opportunity to showcase the education in the community and make those human connections that result in those PDLs and referrals.
Yeah, it's absolutely empowering. Building an analytical view of the student journey is also a great way to uncover insights into what's working, what's not. Let's chat about some of the data points that can help teams make better data-driven decisions that will affect the student journey and admissions goals. And let's talk a little bit about KPIs. What metrics do you, or KPIs do you, Christine, recommend career colleges track? And from a more marketing perspective, are there any additional metrics that you recommend? For example, metrics related to lead pacing or other types of reports?
We find the best success is in monitoring the early indicator KPIs. So things like daily and weekly inquiries against pacing goals, appointments that are set, interviews that show up. Those are key indicators of how your activity is going. And as your activity goes, so follows your starts, right? So without enough early indicator activity, that you've got a challenge that you have to overcome. We view those as kind of the canary in the mine, and that's a very outdated old analogy. But for those of you who don't know, the canary in the mine was miners back in the day would take a canary down to the mine with them, because the canary would be the first thing to sense if the air quality suffered. And so if the canary was in trouble, then all of the miners were in trouble. And that's really what these early indicators are, is if that early indicator is in trouble, then everything is in trouble, and you need to shift and adjust. So from the marketing side, of course we track inquiries, contacts, appointments, interviews, enrollments on a daily and weekly basis. And of course, starts is the ultimate indicator of success. We had a proprietary tool that we were using pre-LeadSquared that was custom and built just for us, and we loved it. And then it just kind of aged out, and it was on a platform that was no longer supported. And so we had to find an alternative. We ended up partnering with the LeadSquared team, and I have to say I'm delighted we did. Sorry, bear with me. It's allergy season, and I'm in full swing. We had, a custom UI that allowed me as a marketer to track the ability of, or the budget and leads, not just from a quantity standpoint, but from a monetary standpoint. So if I had extra money that I needed to move around in order to reach a goal, it was very dynamic, and I was able to do that. When we were onboarding with LeadSquared, they were able to recreate this custom tool for us, and I use it every day, delightedly. I love it, and that flexibility to adjusting on the fly to what's going on is key to long-term success. I often say it's like driving a car. You can't get in the car and push a button and end up where you're supposed to be. You have to continually adjust and tweak and navigate to get where you're going. And marketing is the same way. If you don't follow those KPIs along the path, you'll never end up where you want to be.
Yeah, one thing that I definitely hear loud and clear, and even in my world as a solutions provider, the real-time data is key to making the timely decisions. Gone are the days of having to wait days or weeks for the report. So I definitely appreciate that as well. Simplifying processes is also a proven technique to improve efficiency, increase stability, and reduce time and effort exerted without losing any value from that activity. For institutions with aggressive enrollment goals, simplification can help teams scale their processes and engagement with students across the entire student journey. With LeadSquared, for example, teams can scale their outreach to connect with multiple prospects without losing any of the personalization that we all know is necessary to truly connect with and enroll these students. Simplifying the application and enrollment process is another way that career colleges can significantly reduce the time to enrollment. And if you consider the application process itself, it starts with the traditional paper-based or digital application. And although we have seen a tremendous boom in digital experience in some institutions, definitely still rely on lengthy paper applications that must be mailed into the institution, routed to the appropriate person, and reviewed manually. While others have adopted electronic portals that allow prospective students to complete and submit their application online. So Christine, how have you seen the application process evolve in certain years and in recent years, and how would you characterize some of the pros and cons of using digital portals for applications versus traditional methods? We definitely want to still keep in mind that we have that human touch and that contact that supports the student along the journey.
Yeah, so our approach is really no matter how that application process occurs, whether you use a digital platform as support or you do it as paper support, the human interaction during the process is what's essential to success. So while there's potential time savings and efficiencies in allowing students to quote unquote self-service the application, we find that sometimes that results in confusion or burnout on the level of information that's being presented, and it's important information. So then we need that admissions person and that interaction to make sure that there's no misunderstandings and no seeds of potential disappointment down the road. We don't want them to, imagine something because they didn't read everything thoroughly and then down the road become disappointed when they find out it's different than they imagined. So we want to be clear, we want to be concise. During the pandemic, we actually tested out splitting our application from the enrollment process and doing it in two parts and having a digital application and then a paper enrollment. That didn't end up yielding us better results. So we've gone back to having it as one joint process on our end. And that allows our admissions team to take the student through all of the paperwork, and make sure that there's clarity and understanding, and address any concerns or confusion immediately when the forms are being completed. There's a lot in today's environment. There's just a lot of paperwork and disclosures required to make sure that students know and understand what they're opting into for career training. And we find that the admissions team support of that conversation is critical to the long-term student success over the life of the student.
Yeah, absolutely. You certainly don't want to create frustration from the get-go with paperwork. Are there other points during the admissions and enrollment process that could benefit from a similar review and possible simplification?
Absolutely. I mean, in everything that I've said about the importance of human interaction, we also know that there's human frailty that is introduced into that human interaction. When you have a human being, there's bound to be errors and omissions, right? That's just part of being human. So what we love about the efficiency of a digital platform is that, not to stereotype, but admissions people tend to be great with people and less great with paperwork. So having a process that brings that organization and captures everything in one place for everyone is a great point of efficiency that we use with today's technology. So that allows that all of the compliance boxes are checked and everyone knows that all the information has been delivered as expected, but it saves so much time. You're not tracing down and checking and finding paperwork that got misplaced or waylaid along the way. And then the file review is much faster. For a compliance and regulatory standpoint, it's all very centrally located. So there's huge efficiency gains from using technology and digital platforms.
Yeah, and it's absolutely important to understand our individual strengths and agree on what our focus areas will be and allow the technology to just make us better. A common misconception with the term automation is that it means robotic or impersonal. And like we were just talking about in the previous slide, making sure that we don't eliminate that human contact, that human interaction. And the reality is that automation has advanced to the point that it actually can help teams create personalized and intuitive experiences. CRM technology is a great example of a solution that can provide valuable automation support. One of our other customers, Unitech Learning, for example, accelerated response times by 80%, increased student conversions, and improved overall lead management through the support of advanced sales and marketing automation. And according to their VP of admissions, their team is much more efficient and empowered. So that gives you kind of the human element of job satisfaction and being able to do their work more efficiently with allowing, again, that technology to enable that. So Christine, what's your take on automation in career school administration, and what do you see as some of the key benefits?
So we, I like to invent terms, so I'm going to call it kind of a manually driven automation, which is a little bit of a hybrid from just a straight technology automation. So what we find is, being able to trigger automated messages and follow up is very helpful and supportive of the conversation with our admissions team. But we want it to be in ways that they control, so that they're still controlling the conversation and managing the relationship that is so critical to them. So, our reps are able to opt in or out of automated text messaging by a simple checkbox within our LeadSquared process. And that makes it so streamlined and easy because it's part of what they're already doing. They just check a box if they want it to go, and then they don't check it if they don't. So it ensures that the relationship never falls out of sync. It prevents redundancy. They don't have to manually type in a text message. They don't have to, do a bunch of copy and pasting and other things that create hiccups and time thieves along the way. But it does also ensure that the personal interaction and relationship is maintained. So if they know what our standard messages are, and if they don't want it to go out, then they don't have to, and they can personalize it, or they can personalize it in that moment. There's some automation that we use, of course, to make sure that we don't miss anything and miss any opportunities. So if something lingers too long without being moved forward, then we may send a message to just check in, make sure that we're doing our job to get them the best possible experience with us. But there's nothing really worse than automation that's out of sync with your communication with a partner, right? So we all have the example of, our car service reminders. They're great. For me, it's the salon reminders, whatever the reminder is that's like, hey, reply C to confirm. And those are awesome. I love those. Mm-hmm. And then there's ones that you get where you just hang up from speaking with somebody and you immediately get, hey, it's been a while since we've talked message. And you're like, I just talked to you. So that's why we want that manually driven aspect for us. We want it never to feel like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And we want to not have that dissonance in the experience. So having it controlled by the people who are in the relationship has worked well for us.
Yes, and I love your term of manual automation. We may have to do something with that. Figure a place for that in our messaging. Deciding to adopt new technologies, we know, is only one step of the process. And the next step is to gain buy-in with your institution, which is definitely not a simple task. Christine, what are some of the strategies you use to gain that buy-in?
Any new technology and change can be challenging for everyone to adopt. And there's always kind of the group of eager adopters who, in 5 minutes are like, this is my new baby. I love it. I can't wait. This is awesome. And then there's that group who is maybe a little more resistant or struggles a little bit with it. And what we found is using the early adopters, we were able to troubleshoot very quickly. So we had, identified any issues and streamlined our processes in ways that made it easier for the second group to come on board smoothly. The other thing that we did is really have a series of training and Q&A sessions and kind of a how do I bank of videos that we used. For our company, that was me. But creating somebody who becomes a super user, who is a resource for the team internally, that can, in 5 minutes solve the most basic issue and help smooth out some of the things that don't necessarily rise to the level of a support ticket. And it just made sure that our team was able to embrace the benefits and understand the benefits of the technology evolution, and then it makes their lives easier. And that, coupled with kind of a back-end accountability, having our leaders use the tool and hold them accountable for the data that's in there and make sure it was accurate. And as we're monitoring the KPIs in real time, there was no longer that gap of, oh, that's not accurate, let me go update it, right? So that gap has gone away, which streamlined the business and allowed us all to embrace it more fully.
Yeah, it's absolutely a team effort that I think requires, as you stated, a super user or a champion to own and drive the initiative internally and definitely keep it going. Shelf software is obviously very useless software. Optimize is the next step, but by no means it's the last step. As the needs and expectations of students change, career schools will need to evolve as well. With that in mind, it's critical that career schools adopt a mindset of continuous improvement, cycling through these steps regularly. Not only will increased efficiency through technology allow your team to handle the ups and downs of enrollment easier by streamlining your resources, but it will also allow you to reduce the time to enrollment and improve the experience for staff and students alike. And as we mentioned earlier, building an analytical view into the application and student journey will be critical to not only identify areas for improvement, but also areas for optimization. So for example, this data can help your team identify where a prospective student may be dropping out of the application process, or give your team insights into the communication channels used with students. Are you emailing too much? Are the messages resonating? And ultimately, you'll be able to take these data points to make better data-driven decisions quickly. Christine, how do you leverage reporting to optimize your strategies and tactics?
The best advice I ever was given about data was in a training seminar, and I forget who, or I would give them proper credit, but it was, whenever you're presented with data, you should ask yourself 2 questions. The first is, so what? And the next is, now what? So if you are presented with data and you can't answer those 2 questions, then you're not creating actionable data analysis. So data is only helpful if it drives action and change. Using reporting, insights, and information in ways that drive action is what will yield those long-term results. So when you get that data and you say, okay, here's the picture, now what? Or so what? That's the picture. What do we do about it, right? That's what makes the difference. We love the real-time access, like I was talking about in LeadSquared, where we combine that with our campus nexus data to drive our decisions about where we need to provide coaching and support, or where we're going to celebrate and try to mimic and reproduce results that are working. If no one's looking at the reports, there's no benefit to them. So having data, like you said, that just exists isn't helpful. One of the things I love about our team internally is that we are all heavily invested in reviewing our reports and taking action against them and ensuring accuracy of the data in them. So, when I publish a report, I know right away, I have admissions people looking at it to make sure that it's accurate, and they contact me within sometimes seconds if it's not reflecting what they think it should be, and we are able to troubleshoot and address any issues right away. So the cycle of successful marketing and admissions has really not changed much. You always want to test, measure, adjust, right? Like that cycle is what yields long-term success. I try to aim for what I call breakthrough tests, where you're testing something really outside the norm. You're aiming for something that's going to perform, at a 25% or greater bump from what you're currently doing, but then also the incremental tests and, trying to get that last 1 or 2% efficiency out of what you're currently doing to be more successful. Those data points, from those tests inform you and help you take action that will make it more successful in the future. And I always say, marketing's not boring if you're doing it right.
That's absolutely correct. I really like the so what, now what, and we'll definitely pause and ask myself those couple of questions the next time we take on initiatives and measure results. So yeah, I really like that. Another area for optimization is creating a network of ambassadors within your school community. It's important to know and evangelize your institution's mission and ensure your students and staff are reminded of the value that your school brings. We all know this creates a sense of pride and extends the reach of your school to drive new enrollments. That said, Christine, how have you seen schools successfully create ambassadors within the student and staff population? I know that you have a brilliant story to share.
I'm very fortunate. I think it comes from the top down always in every organization, and we have the best of the best, I think, in that regard. Our president and COO and CFO are dedicated and passionate about student success, and in almost every conversation about our students, about our processes, about what we're trying to do, whether it's one-on-one counseling or to a group of employees, 100, 200 people, they're talking about the importance of treating our students like they're part of our family, like they're your own son or daughter that's making this decision. And that really informs and guides how you interact with that person. You want to make sure that they have the kind of experience and treatment that you'd want for your own loved one. That's become such a part of our culture. And you literally could ask anyone in any campus, and we all know that that's the goal. So it creates this environment where everyone is on the same team and we're all aiming for the same goal and rowing in the same direction. Even if we may sometimes disagree on how exactly we get there, we all are passionate about making sure that our students have the best experience and they're treated like family. And that keeping that same goal in mind resonates with our students. They feel that difference and that genuine caring that we provide from the moment they step through our doors. We're proud to be a part of that. I have no hesitation saying that that's what we do because I love it.
Yeah, I love the idea of leadership setting the culture and emphasizing the treatment of students as individuals and not just a number. This allows organizations to build a community of ambassadors that includes the employees and students. So I think that is a great note to end on. And we did receive some questions in the chat that we definitely have a few minutes to address. The first one, Christine, is how are you currently allocating resources to better balance between new high school graduates and second career upskilling adult learners? And is there a ratio you'd recommend to help achieve enrollment targets?
So we personally, as an organization, we don't target high school seniors until at a minimum January of the year that they graduate. We require a high school diploma to enroll in our programs. So, we really focus on that adult learner. But recent high school graduates, comprise a fair bit of our audience. And we find that, people are decisioning now, and it's different. It's changed in recent years as people have gone through this and have weathered a pandemic where they may have gotten a traditional and been on a traditional 4-year path and found that investment didn't pay out for them. I want to be clear. I think education is always a good idea. But some traditional degrees don't yield that job at the end of the rainbow, right? So they're struggling. And we've had high school seniors say to us, look, I'm going to come in, I'm going to get skills that I know I can get a job with, and then I'll go do the 4-year thing so that they have always something to fall back on. And I think that's kind of the environment we're finding right now is that fallback preparation is critical. So, we can't speak to a target ratio because we focus so heavily on, they have to have that high school diploma to qualify for our program. So personally, I don't have a recommendation on a ratio, but I do know that there is a shift going on in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, whether it's skill-based schooling or four-year education, it's definitely good that we have options. And I think what's most important is to understand your applicants' needs and make sure their journey meets up with what you're able to offer. Another question is, what types of reports and metrics do you find most valuable through LeadSquared?
Gosh, that's a good question. There's so much.
Good answer.
One of the things we love about LeadSquared is the ability to customize the view of the data. And this is what I always say when I'm training people is, whatever you want to do, there's a way to do it. You just have to figure out how in this platform you're going to accomplish it. So one thing I think is helpful for our admissions people is being able to slice and dice the data in LeadSquared to target really specific groups. These are people that I've talked to in the past that haven't come in for an interview, that has been more than a month since I've talked to them. That's what I want to message. And they're able to craft those groups and message to them in that kind of automated fashion with that manually driven automation. And that's really helpful to drive that conversation forward. I think one of the things that we've loved about LeadSquared is that they have helped develop custom reports, as I kind of mentioned before. We have a proprietary, not proprietary to us anymore, but it was report that I use probably 5 times a day. Like I'm constantly in there to help drive my marketing bus. I'm constantly tweaking and adjusting and evaluating what's working and am I getting where I want to go for the week, the day, the month, whatever. And I think that level of flexibility within LeadSquared and within the LeadSquared support team particularly is kind of irreplaceable. I mean, that has been why they've become such a great partner for us and why we're so invested in, helping other people understand the value that they bring to the table.
Yes. So selfish plug here. I do love the idea of a customized dashboard. I think any marketer would. LeadSquared was able to provide that for you, but tell me what that experience was like.
We all came into it with a little bit of rose-colored glasses, right? So we're like, here's what we need. And they're like, yeah, that's no problem. And then as always the case with custom development, you realize, wow, we didn't really scope that out thoroughly enough. But they were great. And I have to say that the team at LeadSquared is a group of probably the kindest professionals that I've had the privilege to work with. They're just a great group of guys and wonderful people to work with, and women. I'm not excluding you, Kelly. But you guys have been wonderful to partner with and have really made it your mission to understand what we're trying to accomplish and help us get there in the fastest, most efficient way possible. And that's been hugely helpful.
Awesome. One other question we have is, beyond admissions and marketing, are there any other teams that could benefit from a tool like LeadSquared, or is it mainly focused on new student enrollment? And Christine, I'd love to hear your answer, and if Shub, you want to chime in at all with this one as well.
So we're about a year into using LeadSquared, and right now it's mainly our marketing and admissions teams that are using it. There is potential for other uses, and obviously we see the potential for like financial aid to be looped in, education to be looped in as needed, a place for common paperwork and documents and notes and everything to live. But what we've found as the greatest benefit of LeadSquared is the integration with Campus Nexus, which is where all of our education and compliance and financial stuff happens, right? So the the streamlined integration where if we add something to LeadSquared, it goes into Campus Nexus. So the data is available to all of our teams. That's been absolutely essential to our success.
And I think apart from admissions and marketing, we've seen people, any department where there's a process involved for follow-ups, right? So student services and graduate teams, because we integrate with the SIS platform. So student graduate and services teams, high school recruitment, financial aid teams, as Christine said. So any department where there are follow-ups involved, I think that's where we have seen LeadSquared being utilized predominantly. On just that piece alone, Christine, there's a question that has come in for us, is how do we assess learners in their enrollment journey when you have a rather large recruitment and admissions team, and they have to speak to a few people in the process? So basically the question is, does speaking to more people in the enrollment journey a problem per se, or they should try to speak to a lot more people during the enrollment process? So what is your thought on that piece?
You know, there's what do they say? There's no I in team, right? So, you know, we have our best performing teams. Everybody is kind of in the same page with everybody else. We don't have huge teams. So in each of our campuses, you know, we max out at 7 or 8 reps. So within the group of 7 or 8 of them, they're able to communicate. And, you know, if they're on the phone with somebody and somebody else overhears them talking, it's like, oh no, wait, I talked to so-and-so, or, you know, whatever. It keeps the communication in sync, and our team members are very respectful of each other. So I don't personally have experience with a larger environment where, you know, if you've got 20 or 30 and you're trying to manage that between them, I wouldn't want to weigh in and give that. Maybe Shub, you can give some insights on what you see on other clients that you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just to that particular point itself, it's always good to have them working together on that piece. But yeah, if you're trying to understand that if you have a larger recruitment or admissions team, we at LeadSquared work with schools who have over 500 reps, right? So in those sort of scenarios, I think prioritization becomes pretty important, right? And if you're using the right platform where the platform could essentially help the reps figure out which are the right students or inquiries to talk to at what stage of the enrollment funnel, right? So if the platform can tell you that, okay, they're stuck at a documents process or they're stuck at this particular process, right? So if the platform can tell you that, that would essentially ease down your job of essentially talking to as many people as you can, which would essentially lead into more enrollment. So I think that is how you basically solve the problem. There's one last question that has just popped up, Christine. How do you connect with leads who don't enroll as students? What's your best strategy to do that?
You know, it depends on the last communication that we had with them. And that's where, you know, I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but I kind of go back to having our admissions team manages the relationship. And so, you know, they'll say, okay, I'm ready to send a text blast out to this group of people, and we'll send out a text message to re-engage them and invite them in for an open house or whatever. So there's different ways that you re-engage with people, and I think we all kind of know what those are. But for us, you know, relying on the experts that are building the relationship is where we find the success, is not automating it to the point where it loses that relationship in the human relationship. We want to make sure that our admissions people are controlling the narrative and making the connection, because they've had that connection, particularly if you've spoken with the person before. So they know these people, and like I said, our team, I think, is some of the best, and they will recognize that person when they come through the door again or when they respond again. So they get to control the messaging that goes out to them, and nothing goes out without their approval.
All right, so I think that's all the questions that have come in, Shub. Have you seen any more?
No, I think that we're all.
Okay, great. So I do want to take a quick minute again to thank Christine for sharing her experience and her expertise at American Institute. We will definitely follow up with you all and hope to have the opportunity to offer a glimpse into our sales and marketing automation platform at work. But until then, be well and stay safe.